You know, they say never meet your heroes, but I actually met one of my heroes, and it turned out pretty good. I first met George Carlin in the summer of 1983. I was 18 years old. I'd been doing stand-up for about a year, and I met him through a fluke. And over the course of the years that we continued to intersect, and we developed what I would call a friendly acquaintanceship. This is an interview I recorded with him in March of 1997 for HBO. And I think the thing that becomes apparent in it is what an incredibly nice guy he was. I always tell people, as funny as he was as nice a guy as he was funny. I'd been with him when he'd meet fans, and he always knew when you met him as a fan that it wasn't about him, that it was about you, that he always afforded people their dignity. And that influenced me as much as any of his performing or material ever did. In any event, I hope you enjoy it. If you're a fan of his, I think you'll like it. Thanks. Hi, I'm Dana Gould, and welcome back to the U.S. Comedy Arts Festival on HBO from Aspen. And I have the great pleasure of talking to the belle of the ball, so to speak, George Carlin.
How are you?
How are you, George?
Good to see you again.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in about 10 years.
Well, that's a good period, I think, for people.
Especially with me.
Yeah. All right, yeah, okay. You're fine.
For about 10 years, and then you hook up again, and then in about another 10, you'll get that itch.
There.
On your latest CD, Back in Town, you have written on the back in the liner notes something to the effect of, I hope you really enjoy this because I think after doing it for all these years, I finally figured this out.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the work just got better in about 1990. It was slow, it was like the last of the 80s, the early 90s. Something just happened to the writing. And I think what it was I finally figured out that I don't give a fuck about anything. I really don't care about the human race. I really don't care about democracy or religion or God or these people in this country. All I care about is telling you what's on my mind. So if you don't have an emotional stake in the outcome, you're a lot freer. And I discovered that I had gotten to that place. I didn't put myself there. I got there, and I looked and I thought, well, this is great. I'm really free to sit out here somewhere, near Jupiter and go, look at that, look at that, look at that. And I don't care. I'm not lobbying for a result. Like a lot of these comedians seem. I hear these political comedians, they're lobbying for something. I don't care. And that freed me, and the work got better. And time, too, also makes you a little better. Yeah, and as you burn through your own demons, you can get more objective about it. Yeah.
But that's sort of contrary to what people may think of you, because you are, for lack of a better term, thought of pretty much as the comedian of the left.
Well, only because if I had to fall down...
If not politically, societally.
Yeah, if I had to fall down on one side of that line, it would be on the left, because it seems the right is interested in property to the exclusion of humans, and the left is a little more interested in humans, perhaps to the exclusion of property even. And I would fall there. But then I had to learn that none of that counts. None of it means anything. It's all meaningless. Meaningless. So go have fun. Talk about what you see, and don't be lobbying. That's what I learned.
I find it's interesting. I don't consider myself a political satirist. You, however, you've had sort of 4 careers. I think of. You had your initial career where you were a partner with Jack Burns,
right,
and then your original solo stand-up, which was primarily character-driven, where you would do the hippie,
mostly
the
show
weatherman,
business, television parodies, characters,
the Indian Sergeant, and very straight, bored comedy,
superficial.
Then you sort of discovered yourself, as you say, in the late '60s, '70s.
Yeah.
Became who people think of you. When you
that's the dominant impression.
And people think of you when you first became, for lack of a better word, a superstar.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Four albums in a row went gold, so that moved me up.
Right. Yeah. And then you phased into this other where you were just sort of a benign observationalist. And now you're this new, wonderful sort of macro critique.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to find a word.
That's okay. I like macro because that's the idea I was trying to convey.
Yeah. And do you look back on these as separate sort of careers, or is it all part of a unified whole?
Punctuated equilibrium, which is the secret to evolution.
What?
Every now and then, boom. It goes like this, and then every now and then it goes boom, and the mutant hangs in.
Right.
So that's what it has been. It's been an evolution. You know, if you play the violin for 40 years, you're supposed to get better at it.
Right.
So I got better at the skill parts. Mm-hmm. But the internal, the stuff that drives it all, it went through periods of, awakenings, you know, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Oh, of course. And then you write from that base, and it gets more interesting to you, and you find all sorts of vistas and stuff and places to go, you know.
Right, and where in times where you thought you were written out, and then suddenly you open up a whole new door to a whole new house, and you can go through all that evolution.
And may I say, the accumulation of notes. I was told when I was 19 years old by my first boss in radio, write down every idea you ever get. You'll want them someday. There'll be a day when you want to turn to a folder and find it. I did that. And what they have is a life of their own. And the notes find each other. If you're a pattern seeker, you see this goes with that. You suddenly see this is a family of ideas as opposed to, and those things merge and synthesize, and that's what's wonderful. And that's probably what all writers do. Yeah. But to discover that there's a writer underneath the comedian, a real writer, was the most wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's interesting sometimes I've experienced when you have a bit and you realize that a joke that you wrote 8 years ago that you couldn't stand doing suddenly fits perfectly into that one thing.
Absolutely. And somehow they all find their way in. I look at things now and I say, when are you going to show up? You know, I'll see something, an old note, and I know it's old, but I say, I'm not throwing that away. It's valid someday, you know.
Right. One thing I wanted to talk, let's follow this train of thought.
Okay.
As you're in this new place that is sort of delineated for people who want to bone up, go rent, my opinion, that I tell everyone, is go rent Jammin' in New York and see Back in Town.
Yeah, thank you.
And the one just before Jammin' in New York.
Doing it again. 1990.
When I've given people like CDs of Jammin' in New York, and I've said, like, just listen to this. It's great. People have said, wow, he's really pissed again. It's great.
Yeah.
And do you find that some audiences, though, are not ready for that?
Well, it obviously varies a little bit by region.
Yeah.
Naturally, at my level of recognition by the public, I'm getting my own people in the joint, so it's my audience. What happens is good, though. Just enough of them, and they've come to expect two or three things. A little bit of the English language stuff that kind of is fun for them, wordplay and phrases and stuff. A little bit of what's between your toes and what's in the car and your sister-in-law's hat, the small world. And then a lot of the stuff, look how we're killing each other. Isn't it fun? Let's do this faster if we can. And abortion.
The entropy sprint.
Yes, and they like the blend, I think. So they tolerate, and I'm not saying they all do this every moment of every show. Right. Some of them love that strange shit.
Yeah.
But the ones who are a little skittish about it tolerate it because there's a payoff over here in something else, and then they like it a little too because it's a little daring and dangerous. Yeah.
Which genuine danger is a rare commodity nowadays in anything. But this sort of, to me, ties into it in that one of my favorite things, and one thing that we both have in common, is we both really hate golf.
Yes.
You're putting it in a much better word.
Well, as a metaphor, especially for
the downfall of
the well-off.
Yeah, those that have
too
and
much.
You can hear in Jammin' in New York, some people aren't ready to accept that idea in the audience.
Yeah.
But it's so great that you plow forward because it ties back to when you first discovered yourself, as you say, in '69.
Yeah, right.
I don't think people understand what you lost monetarily and personally when you made that change.
Well, my wife and I had a house, the first one we would ever have owned had we gone through with it, in escrow in Calabasas in California, which is kind of prototypically suburban and middle class, and that's important to a woman, more so than a man perhaps because of the nesting instinct and all these biological things, but especially at that time. And when I told her, when I got fired from Las Vegas and I was making about $12,500 a week at that time, which was unheard of for me. I didn't make it anywhere else, but I made it there.
Good.
Yes, and it was good, and it went away, and I told her, I said, I've got to go to the colleges. That was my shorthand.
And she said that you decided to talk about what was really on your mind.
Yeah, I had to do more personal comedy, whether it had a social ring to it or it was just autobiographical about being a Catholic kid.
Right.
It was realer than doing a hippy-dippy weatherman and doing Wonderful Wino.
And you got fired.
I got fired for saying shit in a town where they play craps. Okay. But I got fired, and I said to her, I got to go to the colleges, which was shorthand for I got to be myself, and that's where the audiences are, coffee houses and colleges.
Right.
And you know what she said to me? She said, "I'll make up the press kit." Which is just what you need, man.
That's great.
So that's when that took place. It was a wonderful pivot.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that people don't really understand that it came at a personal loss when you did that.
Yeah, there was a little risk involved.
And for someone who is so blunt with the truth, you cite as one of your biggest comedic influences Danny Kaye.
Yeah.
Who doesn't strike me as...
No. But I was a mimic as a kid. And I loved dialects and voices and clowning and faces. And I was attracted, among others, among a great deal of other comedians, Spike Jones and all the radio comedians, Red Skelton in the movies, Bob Hope in the movies. But Danny Kaye did this wondrous stuff, this tour de force type of, and this vocal facility was just so impressive. That drew me. And I always saw him as sort of the central idol, the figure above whom all the others kind of paled.
I'm like that with Sid Caesar, but because I'm a big fan of prescription drugs.
And I loved Sid, of course, because that was a slightly little late, about 5 years later for my life.
I want to wrap this up with a question. As you rediscover the writer in yourself and move into this new area, do you ever move into other genres? Would you ever consider writing a book or a screenplay? I would love to see. When I saw Jammin' in New York, I thought, boy, what a great movie! I want to see this guy through a fluke as the president.
There's a book in May.
Oh, there's a book about
It's not an autobiography. It's not a memoir. That's later.
Because I have a book coming out about Roseanne Barr's bad childhood.
All right. Well, and who would know it better? Yeah, I got a book, and it's full of new stuff. The only two things in it people will know are baseball and football, and a place for my stuff. Everything else, it's called Brain Droppings, and that's exactly what it is. It's little what I call mental brain thoughts squeezed from the brain very generously. That's in May, and I found the greatest sustained creative joy I ever had was the 8 weeks I spent on that book. I had never had a sustained feeling of that kind of wonder and joy, and I know I'm going to go back to that a lot.
Well, that's great. I'm happy to hear it because it just means more stuff that I can watch and read.
Yeah, good.
Thanks very much. It was so great to see you again.
This could not have been. They couldn't have picked a better person to do this with me. Thank you for
thanks.
doing this.
Well,
I really
that's
appreciate
nice
it.
to hear.
And I mean that, and I don't bullshit people. All right.
I know. Well, I do.
But
in this case, I'm serious.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, George Carlin, everybody.
He's irrepressible.